Welcome, Mr. President.
Labvakar.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to hear you.
When you want to sit this way?
Yeah. Here.
So welcome to Digital Freedom Festival. Mr. President, we just met a few hours ago. I had the pleasure of visiting you in the palace. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy that you're here. You see some of the mobile phones being raised. Now we're talking about digital culture and politics today, and maybe a little bit also about your personal story. Me coming from Germany, of course, I'm very interested about your time you spent in Germany as well.
I'm very often reading the ZEIT. I can only recommend.
Okay, thank you. It's not going to be better. That's it for me today. Okay, so so our colleagues from the New York Times magazine, they just published a cover story and a cover about the internet where they showed not a very kind cat, sort of an aggressive-looking cat. And the headline went, "So the internet didn't turn out the way we hoped." Do you agree?
Yes, I agree, because maybe 20 years ago there was big hopes concerning internet, that internet will solve practically all problems. The truth is, as always, partial. Internet has solved and will solve many problems, but as usually, internet, as other technical developments, also creates problems. And we should, as this is a social and political task, to distinguish between the positive and negative effects of the internet, and then to try to cope with the negative effects. Internet is a platform and development which has very, very positive results. And but maybe we can discuss on the positive results or on the negative results. Now, I assume that you wanted to speak with the negative results or with the problematic aspects of internet.
Well, I think we can talk about both effects. I mean, you since you became president, you're on social media too.
Yes. I am because there is only one possibility, or there is two alternatives for modern person as you are here, to be in internet or not to be on all. This is also a choice. We can be alone without communication. Communication is based on internet, I would say rather broader, on digital technology, also not only internet but digital technology, or to be excluded from the social life. And in order to be not excluded, you should use and you should be member of the internet or digital technology community. And I think 90% of all members of society and 100% of politicians has had chosen to be within the community.
So
but
what's
there
so
are
negative?
also problematic aspects.
So what's so problematic about it? I mean, we just posted a video on TikTok before you came to the stage, and my co-host, she basically gave away live on stage all her data from Facebook to TikTok. So is that what you're talking about?
Yes. In the classical theory of democracy is saying, it's more or less true, or maybe partially true, that our decisions, our wishes, also political behavior, political statements, the source is a personality itself. It comes from the inside, and of course how to form the inside is a socialization of a personality, and the socialization has very different influences during my life, and this result is a personality today. Today, the personality is a little bit different from your personality yesterday, and tomorrow will also be a little bit different. Yeah. after this talk.
Yeah, of course.
So this is a classical approach. And also the democracy is accepting this approach that the person is socialized, and of course the decisions or behavior of the personality depends from the socialization and also from the free will. And free will is a very important term in this respect. I would say, not internet and also not digital technology as such, but the use of digital technology by social media especially, and also by internet, that the result is, or the precondition for using of the technology is that you allow to monitor you. All your movements, all your searches in internet, also physical movement by smartphone, also SMS and communication with other persons are monitored. And this is the starting point. If a person is constantly monitored, it's relatively easy by algorithms to predict the behavior of the person. And the algorithms are becoming better and better, and that means it's better and better to produce a profile of a person. And if a person has a profile, then of course it is predictable the behavior of the person depending from the information, for example, which the person receives.
So a lot of people will be saying, like, I have nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide, of course. But on this way, you are getting personalized information, more or less. And persons who are only or mostly by social networks, they are getting personalized information. And of course, you are getting each day very, very small number of information which is in the world. But this small number of information, small amount of information, is designed specially for you. And that means it is possible, relatively easy, to manipulate the people to overcome the free will, the classical free will of the people. For example, in order, it's nothing special, to buy one product or not the other product. It's for the democracy maybe not so important. But it is also to manipulate the people depending from the information which we are getting. For example, to choose one party by the election and not the other party by the election. And this is already a question for democracy. That means a business model of social networks and big internet concerns. This is a business model. It's such that the personalized information can also influence your behavior, including political behavior. And I will add also, we are living in democratic societies, but the same instruments are easily to use also in authoritarian regimes. One big country, I will not name because I am president here, has introduced...
You mean China?
This is your opinion. So, has introduced a social ranking system. Depending from the points which you are getting from the social ranking, you can have some benefits or some negative results. And that means that this is an overall system with an aim to mainstream the people. So if you are behaving like mainstream, and it is wished by the regime, you should be mainstream. It's easier to administer, to govern such people, which is mainstream. Then, of course, this is a kind of tool to stabilize such a system. And I think this is a dystopia for democracy. But the tools are already here by us, the same tools.
So
it depends how they are used, and we have also this Cambridge Analytica and other scandals that also in democratic societies such tools can be used for political, for undue political influencing.
So as a president of a country, what do you actually do against all this?
The starting point is to discuss that, to raise the awareness, because I assume that the awareness of the society concerning these threats for democracy are relatively low, especially in the younger generation. This is a starting point for each political development to raise the awareness of the problem. I can mention maybe the climate issue. 20 years ago, the climate issue was already, technically speaking, already there in the last 20, 30, 40 years, the pollution of the air, for example. But the awareness of the society is maybe more or less reached a political level 10 years ago only, after the technical development. And there was raising political awareness in the society concerning climate issue, and that it led to certain also political decisions in the last years only. For the Paris Climate Agreement is only 4 years old.
Right.
And European Union has put the climate issue now by the new Commission von der Leyen as a first level issue.
So did it take?
So it takes time.
But did it take Greta?
Greta has also contributing to this raising of awareness in the society in a very effective way. Greta has not offered new solutions. Solutions are there, and by the scientists and are already known how to deal with that. But the contribution of Greta is that she is raising the awareness of society, which is a precondition for political action. And the same, I assume, is now for another technical development of the climate. It is the influence of the digital technology to the society society and on the democracy. So the starting point is each time very simple. This is a constant monitoring of the people.
So, I mean, everyone's thinking now, okay, so everyone's monitoring me.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this as the president of your country? I mean, how many smartphones do you have? What kind of tools do you use personally?
So
what can we learn from you?
I said already, it's very difficult to avoid that for a person. It is possible to use some tools, and I'm using all the tools which are available. For example, VPN in English.
VPN?
VPN, yes. VPN I'm using always, so that not to discover the IP address.
Right.
And I'm switching off all the possibilities to follow me by geolocation and so far, but it is not possible at all. It's only a small part which is possible to switch off, and I assume that, so to say, I have given quite the same amount of my personal data as each of you here to the big data system. And of course, the big data system is answering to me with my profile, which is very precise.
Now, Mr. President, me coming from Germany, in preparing for this conversation that we're having today, I of course was stunned by your life, the many changes you had in your life, and I would just like to ask you a few questions about the way how you came here. To become the president of your country this summer. And I surprisingly found out that a visit of President Nixon in 1972 coming to the Soviet Union kind of gave your parents the possibility of moving to Germany?
To leave the Soviet Union, because my father was not very satisfied with the Soviet occupation regime here in Latvia. He had subscribed some memorandums to the regime representatives in Moscow, and that means he was not a good Soviet citizen. And just before the visits, it was a very important visit of the President Nixon to Soviet Union in Moscow. As a sign of goodwill, the Soviet regime said to several thousands such persons which were not very satisfied with the regime, you can leave the country. and also my family, or the family of my father, was also one of the several thousand families which could leave the Soviet Union and be then settled in Germany.
You were 17 years old when
Yes.
you moved to Germany. I guess you didn't speak a word of German, right?
No, I haven't speak German, and then first time I continued my school education in a special school in Germany. It is a Latvian gymnasium, Latvian school in Münster, also in Western Germany, where in Latvian language. Then I finished this school, and I started to study at the University of Hamburg chemistry because of the recommendation of my parents, because chemistry is a serious profession, and it's always you can use in all countries, by all regimes.
That's what they told you?
Yeah. Yes, they told me that it's something serious.
So when did you change from becoming a chemist to becoming a lawyer in the first place? I mean, you started studying law in Hamburg.
Yes. I studied 2 years chemistry, but then I felt that chemistry is, I have not very good talent to be a chemist. So I was, of course, because of my father, politically interested as a student, as a young man, and of course I changed then to law, and I studied all other courses, because as I studied in Germany in the 70s and beginning of the 80s, it was different from the situation now. There was a system called academic freedom of Humboldt's ideal. Academic freedom, that means if you are admitted as a student in one university, you have not a very firm plan of studying. It is only recommendations. You can take all courses what you want, and also to after the course you can have an exam for this course, and then I take all interesting courses in political sciences, in history, also in Africanistic, for example, 2 times, and sociology, so that after a while I have seen that, I have enough studied in order to pass the exam for political science too, and then. So
you became a political science
by occasion.
By occasion.
Yes, okay. Because it was not my wish from the beginning, but I studied so much interesting things that I has for being admitted to the final examination for political sciences. You should have examinations in maybe 10 or 12 specific courses, and I had it. Then I have asked me to admit for the examination for political science, and then I became political science too. But this is a little bit different, but also I finished studies in law and both.
So you lived in Hamburg for the most of the 80s, you worked as a political advisor also at the time. Is it true that 30 years ago, in the summer of 1989, you were one of the advisors for the German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl at the time, to talk about a new way of the two Germanys?
Yes, it was not advisor. I worked at the University of Kiel, and then I worked at the University of Göttingen. In University of Göttingen, it was an institute for, in German it calls Institut für Osteuropa und Deutschlandforschung. Also Institute for Eastern European and German researchers. And this institute was involved in a very small period of time, 89. There was an idea, because there was already demonstrations in the GDR, in the former Eastern Germany, but the regime was still in power. And there was also an initiative from the Western German government, maybe we can achieve something, a confederation of the two German states. So they said, now we have, in Germany, there's only one Germany. But there was idea in order to promote the process of change in Eastern Germany to agree with the confederation. Western Germany and Eastern Germany will build a confederation. But it was only for 2-3 months, such an idea by the German government, and our institute was involved in the preparation of legal preconditions for such confederation. But it happens very good that it was never necessity to build this confederation, because Eastern Germany, the regime in Eastern Germany crashed anyway, and by some months later, Berlin wall falls, and then it was over, this idea.
And a few months later, you wrote the Declaration of Independence for Latvia.
Yes.
How did that actually happen? You went to Riga?
Yes, I was very often in Riga for a longer time, because I was advisor of the Popular Front. It was in Latvia. It was the leading political force in Latvia, and I was also a member of the council of the Popular Front, also in the same time. And of course, all Latvians wanted to have freedom and independence, but there was little. They have little thought about how to form this independence in judicial and political terms, and therefore I prepared this draft for the Declaration of Renewal of Independence, which is a judicial document. And this was the basis for the renewal of independence in 4th of May 1990. It's a legal framework. You know, also Germany, by the reunification, elaborated a very long treaty with thousands of pages, how to reunify two states.
Sounds very German.
It is very complicated from a judicial constitutional point of view. Of course, the political will was there, and the same also in Latvia, the political will was there, and I tried to help to elaborate this judicial document, how to achieve that in reality.
So in preparing for the talk, and I guess many in the audience know it, but I wasn't aware of the fact that you wrote the Preamble like 5 years ago for the Latvian Constitution?
Yes, it's a different document.
Yes.
I prepared a Preamble for the Latvian Constitution because the Latvian Constitution was adopted 1922, and at the time, more or less all constitutions from the time were without such kind of preambles. It consists only of operational part, how the parliament is functioning, how the government is functioning, and so on. But modern constitutions nowadays consists also of I would say, a narrative, political narrative, why the state is necessary, what is the role of the citizen if in the state, and how the citizens can organize their political will in the state system. So, and it was till 2014, such a modern part of the Constitution was not in our Constitution, and I elaborated this modern part of our Constitution as a preamble, and it was adopted by the then Latvian Parliament 2014, and it's now in force.
What's the Latvian word for the, I forgot about the word, but that was...
Yeah, this is a special Latvian word. It's not possible to translate. It's also included in this Latvian preamble, in the preamble of Latvian Constitution, which is not possible to translate. It means the historical experience of a nation. It's one word in Latvia, ZEIT. It's a historical experience, more or less, or cultural experience of a nation, which forms the basis for that, how we are seeing the world. And you can say that Latvians are seeing the world differently as, for example, Chinese, as, for example, Bolivians, or the Germans, or the Swedes, depending from the historical memories, from the historical experiences. And this word is also included in this preamble and means that we are respecting our historical experience in our behavior and in our politics.
Now, when I arrived in Riga, I had some conversations with the younger generation growing up, within the EU, enjoying traveling all over the world, and they told me that for them, one of the big tasks in Latvian society is bringing together the different cultures, also the Russian-speaking population, like bridging the gaps between those parts of society. How do you see the situation?
I think that is also a question of generations, because the older generation came from the Soviet Union, from Russia mostly, and Latvia was part of Soviet Union, occupied part, but nevertheless for the people which came from Russia, it was a Russian part of Russia. And of course, after the independence, renewal of independence, they have seen themselves as a minority in a different country, in a small country, not more a big country, but a minority in a small country. And I think it is also psychologically sometimes difficult to adapt to the new situation. I can also see that now, for example, in South Africa, after the end of the apartheid regime, the white minority, which was a dominant minority, find themselves in a situation when there is a minority in an African or black-dominated society, and it's difficult to become from the dominated group to a group which is minority in a democratic society, and this creates some psychological problems of adaptation. But I'm speaking about the older generation, which lived in the time. The younger generation don't have these problems. They are already born in free Latvia, in democratic Latvia, and they know also the state language, the Latvian language, and I think this problem will disappear relatively soon.
Now, a couple of months ago, you gave an interview with the BBC, and they asked you about how your life has changed since you became president. And one of the questions they asked is like, oh, do you still walk around for lunch in the old town of Riga and have lunch with your friends, or has it become more difficult? And your answer was, I don't have time for lunch anymore.
Yeah. Yes, it's true.
Do we have to worry about you?
Yeah. So, no, lunchtime is the best time to work, but then nobody is disturbing me. So, this is one of the consequences to be president, but I am accepting willingly this consequence.
What's your favorite dish in Latvian?
Oh, kartoffel.
Potatoes?
Potatoes, yes. It's a typical Latvian dish, potatoes with something, but always potatoes. Without potatoes, this is not a real dish. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I was wondering in preparing this conversation, and the time that I'm seeing that our time is running up, is that how you speak so many different languages. You've studied all these different fields. You worked as a judge in the European Court in Luxembourg for a lot of time, a lot of years. And your advisor, who he's here in the front row, just shared this little secret with me. I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I'm
you should tell me the secret first to me.
Okay, then we're just a few friends here.
Okay,
so.
Yes, yeah.
So you have a very specific way of reading. Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, that I can recommend really. This is as a student at the Hamburg University, I had a course of fast reading, quick reading. And this is a special method how to read quickly a page. And it helps to me very much, because since 40 years I'm reading in such a way, but I cannot recommend to read this real literature, because in literature you should feel the feelings. But if you are reading news or some scientific articles, you can see the page as a driver, car driver.
As a car driver?
As car driver, right. Yes. Car driver is seeing the whole picture together, not only one or two or three persons or a tree, seeing all the picture together. For example, now I'm seeing the picture with 200 people here. And then, of course, the trick is to divide the picture in four parts, and to look closer to 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you can see the keywords, and then you can go further to the keywords, so to say, fast reading, when it is not necessary to have a very concentrated reading. And I would say 90% of all reading papers, it's enough to have this fast reading. But by this method, you can be a champion in reading in different books, 5 or 10 books in the week.
So now we're all trying to figure out how we're going to do this. Would you give a course, like maybe a video course?
Yes, I can give a course. I know that from my experience, it's already in the blood for me to read this fast.
So we're waiting for the digital course of the president, of being able to read quicker than we all do. Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, bye.